DreamSpire.
Hi, welcome to the Author's Lounge. I am your host, Cheryl Mays, and I am here with Mr. Jon Goode. And I am so excited to have you on the show today. And so Mr. Jon Goode, you are an Emmy-nominated writer. You were featured on, your work has actually been featured on CNN's Black in America, HBO's Def Poetry Jam, BET's Lyric Cafe, and TV One's Verses and Flow. And you have also written radio commercials for McDonald's, print ads for Nike, and commercials and vignettes on VH1 and TV Land at Nick at Night.
Mm-hmm.
I said that right, Nick at Night.
Nick at Night, that's the one. That's the
there
one.
You go. And in addition to that, you earned the 2006 Promax Gold for the best copyright in North America. So I am so excited to have you on. And we are going to get into all of this as soon as we return from this break. Welcome back to the Author's Lounge. I am here with Mr. Jon Goode, and if you've missed the intro, he has done everything. You have had a unique experience, and I'm so excited to be able to have you on today to share with us your journey, to talk about not only the Midas novel that you have out now, but also Conduit. So tell us about, where did this start? Because you are from a great family of entertainers.
Oh, yeah. Well, my sister is a musician. She's incredible, has a jazz album out right now. And, you know, my father was just a funny guy. You know, he didn't stand on the stage of any sort, but oh my God, people used to come to the house all the time just to hear him just talk that talk. He had the gift of gab. So, yeah, it's a pretty entertaining family that I developed out of here. And, yeah, I went the way of writing all of the things that are humanly possible to be written. If it can be written, I can write it. Stage play, ransom note, whatever you need, I'll write it for you.
I'll remember that about the ransom note.
If you need one, they're going to give you the money. I promise. I promise.
Well, so tell us about your experience. I mean, this has been a walk that many have wanted to travel.
Yes.
I mean, you know, we're talking CNN, BET, VH1, HBO. That is not, those aren't little accomplishments. Those are pillar accomplishments. And so you are so very humble as you sit there and go, yeah, I just write.
Well, I mean, it's, man, I'm a blessed guy. You know, God's got a plan. I have a degree in economics from James Madison University. Writing was not exactly the path I was headed on. And then I just caught like this writing bug. A friend of mine, when I was working as an accountant, she dragged me to an open mic. She asked me, she was like, I'm going to this poetry open mic. Would you like to go? And I told her there is nothing I would like to do less than go to a poetry open mic. Guys, this sounds like a nightmare. So she was like, if I can catch up with you before you leave, will you go with me? I was like, if you can catch me, sure. And sure enough, she caught me and she took me. And it was the most like transformative night of my life. I just, you know, those people have the same 26 letters of the alphabet I've got, but what they were doing, I was blown away by it. And I thought to myself, if I work very hard, maybe possibly I can do what they do. And so I started on this journey.
You know, that's amazing. I've had the opportunity to attend some of the poetry slams.
Yeah.
You know, and the poetry nights, and just the rawness of the material.
Yeah.
It just opens you up and you're like, oh my gosh, they are amazing individuals to be able to share and I'm looking at them and they're looking on their phone, like it's written on their phone. It's written on a little notepad.
Yeah, listen, if poetry, spoken word poetry, if done correctly, it's not only are they telling you their story, they're telling you your story. By the extension of telling you their story, somewhere it's either your story or the story of someone you know, something that can really touch and resonate with you in a deep way. When it's done properly, man, there are a few things more powerful than a very, very well done spoken word poem.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I have to ask, from all of your experiences, what is the one that you are probably most proud of or most surprised that happened?
I'm very proud. I'm very proud of the Promax. It's an award that not a lot of people even know exists. It's like a TV industry award. But I won the Promax Gold in 2006, and it comes with a trophy. The trophy looks a lot like an Emmy, and I was able to give that trophy to my mother. So that trophy like sits on her in her like living room, sits on this table in her living room. And I was just so happy to be able to give that to her. But then also when I went to work with CNN, when we were working on Black in America, they showed me their trophy case, and I was looking through the trophy case, and they won the silver in 2006. So I was like, oh, I know who won the gold in 2006. And they were like, who? I was like, it's me. They were like, well, where is it? I was like, it's at my mama's house.
Which I'm sure that she dusts, she cleans it, and nobody can probably touch it.
You're not going to walk in that house and not hear about that statue. You're not going to walk in that house and not hear about it.
That's awesome. Hey, Jon, you also have, and we're going to talk about your two books, but you are also the current host of The Moth, which is in Atlanta.
The Moth is everywhere. The Moth is in, I forget, 32 cities. I forget the number of cities, but The Moth is, I mean, I've hosted The Moth in London. I've hosted The Moth in Hawaii, but I'm the regular host of The Moth in Atlanta. But it's a story telling franchise that is headquartered out of New York City. And it's a little bit of everywhere. I think they have one Moth, before COVID, I think they had one Moth a week. Like once a week, you could go to a Moth event in New York. I think LA has 3 a month. Atlanta has 1 a month. But they're everywhere.
Nice. And so what's the premise of this? What's the premise of The Moth?
The Moth has several different iterations. There is the Story Slam, which is a competition. It's much like the Poetry Slam that you may have gone to, where an individual comes on stage without the aid of notes. You've got 5 minutes to tell us a true story from your life on the theme of the night. The theme for October is disguises, is the theme for October. So you got to find a 5-minute story in your life that in some way encapsulates disguises, however you define disguises. And you come on stage, and 10 people go. Judges are picked from the audience. At the end of the night, somebody wins. And then once you win, you're in the running for the Grand Slam, which we do at, center stage. So 1,000 people come to this Grand Slam. It sells out. They pack in there. And the top 10 winners from the year face off for a Grand Slam champion. So that's one iteration. And then they have the main stage shows where it's a curated show. So they'll grab, like Monty Montepar from Denver and Angelica Lindsay from, Phoenix, people from all over. And they tell like longer stories, like 12, 15-minute stories. It's less, less participants, only like maybe 4 people. But those shows are phenomenal. Like I have not been to one of those that didn't sell out. They're all sold out. They always sell out. They're incredible.
Wow. And so how does one become a participant of this?
If you want to go to Story Slam, it's once a month. The next one, I do believe, so they're virtual currently. So I think the next virtual Story Slam for Atlanta we're going to do is on October the 15th. It's always on a Monday here in Atlanta. So I think that's true. And the theme is disguises. You go to themoth.org is the website. Okay. And put in Atlanta, and it'll give you all the instructions on how to go to the virtual slam here. But when COVID is not here, when we return back to the real world, then you come down to Theatrical Outfits downtown, right beside the Rialto, on whatever Monday night is the given Monday night. You throw your name in a hat. We've had up to 30 names in the hat, but only 10 people gonna go. So I draw the first name, and every other subsequent storyteller draws the next name until 10 people go, and then we get a winner, and that's how we do it here in the city. It's a good time. You should come. You should come, Cheryl. It's a good time.
That's amazing. I'm gonna have to jump on the plane.
It's a good time. It's a good time. Where are you at, Cheryl?
I tell you, I just love the creativity and the imagination and the real, just that real piece of life.
Oh, it's amazing. What city are you in?
I'm in Orlando.
Oh yeah. Look, there might be one in Orlando. I was in Orlando working with a different company. I think Johnson & Johnson. I was doing a project in Orlando. You have a Giordano's in Orlando.
Yes, I'm actually down the street from Giordano's.
I every time I go to Orlando, I eat at Giordano's. I love Giordano's.
Hey, well, next time you come, we'll meet up there.
Absolutely. Listen, don't threaten me with a good time, Cheryl. Let's do it.
There you go. Guys, we are here on the Authors Lounge, and we are visiting with Mr. Jon Goode. And after this break, we're going to talk about the 2 books that you've actually released. One was recently released, which I'm so excited about, and be able to share that. So definitely join us after this break. Thank you for joining us again. We are here on the Authors Lounge, and we are with Mr. Jon Goode, and we have been talking about your entire journey and all of the opportunities that you've had before you. And so now let's talk about, you have a collection of poems and short stories, which is Conduit, which I must say was #1 on Amazon for 16 weeks. So as an author, I am like, oh. So tell us about that one, and then we're going to talk about Midas.
Conduit is a collection of poems and short stories. It's really a retrospective through a lot of my career. Like one of the first poems I wrote is in that book, and the year I published it, which was I think 5 years ago, I think I wrote a story, or maybe I think that there's a poem in there that I'd written like 2 weeks before I published the book. So it spans the entire, there are poems there from every iteration of my writing. And then there are a ton of quite a few short stories. People really got into the short stories. I've become more of a short story writer over the years. So it's a little bit of everything. It's going to take you some places. It's going to make you, laugh, cry, think, hopefully you run the gamut of emotions when you're reading that book. And it's garnered some really positive responses, 54 5-star reviews to this point. Waiting for someone to give me that 55th one. Might be you, Cheryl. You might
I'm telling you, you might be today.
You might give me the 55th.
No time like the present.
So it's a blessing. It's an independent, self-published book, and when you're out here running against the big boys, it's no small feat. But I'm blessed that it has done as well as it has.
That is amazing. That is truly, truly amazing. I would love to one day, and I'm going to throw it out there in the universe, that I will see #1 on Amazon next to my book. So
I'm sure listen, it's totally possible, Cheryl. We'll talk. I'll tell you, it's an interesting game to play, but there's a way to do it. There's a way to absolutely make that happen.
And I think I get so many questions from authors just on that piece there.
Yeah.
Right. How do you maneuver to whereas, your book is a #1 or even in the top 10 on Amazon, when you're looking at, I don't know, over 6 billion books, in a specific category, how do you literally make that happen? So that's always a question that authors have, is like, okay, what do I do?
Yes,
Give me that magic bullet.
There's a way to do it. There's a way to absolutely make it happen. It is a combination of genre. It's a combination of timing and a combination of having built up your social media fan base. If you have those three things, if you understand, like, let's say you're going to write a Black science fiction book, you don't want to drop that on the same day they're like reissuing an Octavia Butler book. You're not going to beat that Octavia Butler book. So you want to be a bit aware of like what's coming out as far as timing goes. And when you want to drop your book, then you want to know what category you want to put it in. If you're in African American science fiction, then there's titles in that you bounce up against, and you can maybe maneuver yourself to number one. If you're in all of science fiction, well, now you're going up against George R.R. Martin, who wrote Game of Thrones, and it's hard to beat George R.R. Martin. Yeah. It's hard to get the number one slot from him. So you have to look at your genre, you have to look at your timing, and then you just have to have like if not through social media, however you do it, you have to have a base of people who are energetic and excited to read what you're writing. So when you drop it, they will aggressively go out, purchase it, and then you'll go to number one. I'm telling you, it'll happen. I believe in you, Cheryl.
Like, I got all that written down, so and I have your contact information here. So I'm like, John, I'm on step 2 now.
Listen, don't be afraid of the way you feel. I say, look, do it.
And so now, talking about African American science fiction, because this is what takes us to Midas.
Yes.
And so, where did you come up with a science fiction novel from poetry and short stories? That's like from here to here.
Yeah, I mean, so I'm a science fiction fan like my whole life. Like, I'm a kid that grows up watching Star Wars and Star Trek and all of this stuff. So I'm always been a fan of it. And so I was sitting one day and I was thinking about this idea of a Black man that when you cut him, he bleeds gold, right? And I was like, well, what would that mean? Like, what would that mean for him in his like community? Like, let's say he's in an impoverished community, and there's this guy in your community that bleeds gold. What does that mean? And what does it mean if you have parents that are financially struggling and they have a kid? They can literally bleed gold. Like, he can pull them out of this poverty. But in the way it's written, in order for him to bleed gold, you have to break his skin, right? You have to break his skin. So even if you're his parents and you want the gold, you're going to have to cut his skin in some way to make it happen. So it's this story. And then, like, what does that mean for him, for his relationships with, with his friends, with, as he gets older, with lovers, with himself? What does it mean for to himself? And there are a few, there's some spins and twists and turns in the story, things that I wouldn't want to give away. I think that the reader would be maybe a bit enthralled to read it and discover these things for themselves. But I think it's an interesting tale of what can happen under these circumstances.
It was interesting as I went to Amazon to kind of look at the book and, was able to flip through and read some things. And I was like, oh my gosh, wait a second. This is so amazing.
Oh, thank you so much.
Is it like so? And so there are stories inside of the story, because there's a story about Haint and there's a story about him.
Yeah. So what we have is Midas itself is a novel, right? Okay. But I'd also written these short stories that I thought were good and timely that I wanted to release into the world. And I know that what people typically will do, of course, is release a book and then they release a collection of short stories. But as far as I care, there are no rules. So I wrote a novel, and then when the novel is over, also included are these 2 like separate short stories, just like, like it's a nice dessert. You know what I mean? A nice something to cap off the evening. Now that you've had this meal, you want a cup of coffee, you read these 2 stories. These are the cups of coffee.
I love that. That is amazing. And the other thing I found that was so appropriate for where we are now, because we're in COVID-19.
We are.
And then you talk about COVID-31.
Yes, in the story Hansy has turned into an oddly prophetic story. I wrote Hansy at the very, very beginning of like the quarantine, the very beginning of it. And as you read it, so many things in that story have actually come to pass. People hit me up all the time. People who have, because initially I released it on Bandcamp as an audio story. I just read it. And people who have heard it, they hit me up and they were like, you know, they send me articles. They were like, read this article. This is from your story. This happened in your story. And now look, it's actually happened. I was like, I know, I've seen the future. I don't know what to tell you. I saw the future, friends. I saw it.
You have been gifted something very few of us have, right? You've had a glimpse into what's happening soon.
Like, what do you want? Listen, what do you want from me? Listen, I'll be like, listen, play 5, 6, 7 today. Pick 3.
Right. And if nothing happens, just remember that I'm not that good. But if it happens, remember where you got it from.
I'm just saying it's going to happen in the future. I don't know if it's tomorrow, but trust me, at some point it's going to happen. I've seen the future. I don't know if it's the immediate future, but the future.
There you go. Just keep moving forward. Well, Jon, this is an amazing story. On the show, I often have new emerging authors, and they're just getting in, and you know they're looking for a way, they're looking for a path, and to hear your story provides hope.
Yeah.
Gives people the ability to say that if I continue, right, if I continue moving forward, then lots of things are possible. Listen, my dad told me as a young man, he said, you don't fail till you quit, so just don't quit. And that's just the thing. You just got to stay at it. It's not a sprint, it's a marathon. It's a marathon, and you have to run the whole way. And sometimes, I know we live in a very much so like an on-demand world. Like if you want to see a TV show, you know, when I grew up, if you wanted to see a TV show, you had to be in front of your TV at a certain hour on a certain station to see that show. And if you didn't do that, then you missed the show. Now you can see any show you want to, just hit a button and you can watch the show. So I know people are used to just everything being at their fingertips and on demand. You can get it right now. But this world of literature, this world of putting out novels and poems and doing all this writing, it's not like Jiffy Pop. It's not quick. It's not easy. It is a bit of a grind, but it will pay off. Like I'm working, I'm writing. And McDonald's opens the door for me to write these little Southeast TV radio commercials, write those. Door opens, Nick at Night calls to write these Black History Month spots, write those. Next thing you know, TV Land calls, come write these a Different World and Cosby Show interstitials, write those. CNN calls, come do Black in America. But everything leads to the next thing. Like you have to show up early, show up professional, show up ready. You have to under promise and over deliver. And I'm telling you, it's going to work out for you. It's the only way to do it. If you don't do it that way, it'll take a different road. So do it that way. I'm telling you, do it that way. You know, that is such great advice. So anybody that is watching this, if you have not taken anything away from this, that should have been written down. That literally, Jon, that should be a t-shirt. Show up, under promise and over deliver. Yes, that's the way to do it. I love that. Jon, thank you so much for spending this time with us. And, you know, I have to ask this question because looking at this list, who knows, but what's next? So in the future, what we have is I have coming up, I'm doing the 2020 Virtual Bronx Book Fair. I'm working on a TV show in association with Sabrina Holmes and Wanda Sykes. I'm working on another novel. I'm writing that just back into writing because writing is what I do. I have a bunch of other small projects coming up, like corporate writing projects with General Mills and a few people. And I'm doing my Moth gigs. We're doing the next Moth Virtual Slam, and I just finished the Moth. I hosted the Moth podcast, and I'm going to host the Moth radio show early next year. And then sleep is just out of the question. So, you know, sleep is overrated, man. No, I'm just kidding. No, you got to get some rest. Like people are always on this, you know, don't sleep, just grind. I'm like, that'll kill you, man. Listen, you better take a nap somewhere. You better get some rest. So that you can continue. So that you can continue. Like, don't let them trick you into like, don't go to sleep. That's crazy. That's why they bump your whole head. Don't do that to yourself. There you go. Jon, you are amazing. Thank you so much. Listen, you have now gained another follower. Oh, well, listen, thank you. I want them all. Absolutely. I need them. Absolutely. And we are so excited that you had an opportunity to come and stop by and chat with us on the Authors Lounge. So thank you so very, very much. Thank you so much for having me. It was my distinct honor and pleasure. Well, you have an amazing day. You also. Guys, there you had it. We had an opportunity to chat with Mr. Jon Goode. And if you have gotten nothing out of that, he is a man on the move. So you definitely want to follow him, check him out. He's got some great opportunities coming up for some poets and some writers. Definitely get the book Midas, which is available on Amazon. And we are so excited that you are here to join us on the Authors Lounge on DreamSpire TV. We look forward to you coming back again. Always follow us. Go to YouTube, follow DreamSpire TV, follow us on Instagram at DreamSpire TV and DreamSpire Books. Join our fan club, our Facebook group, DreamSpire Books, DreamSpire Publication. We would love to have you, and definitely continue to check with us, because you never know who you're going to meet on the Authors Lounge, where we have a fireside chat with authors from around the globe. I am your host, Cheryl Mays, and I say have an amazing day.